I'm just shocked at how many lies were told. Essentially, I walked you through the New York Times metadata and showed you that this woman had posted on X and essentially just like blared it out to the world.
Players in one of the ugliest Hollywood disputes in recent memory faced off in a New York City courtroom.
Blake Lively is in full meltdown mode as the court exposes her lies, using Candace Owens' metadata receipts to dismantle her accusations.
Yesterday on Friday, Brian Friedman, Justin Baldoni's lawyer, amended their lawsuit against Blake Lively, and they included the New York Times data.
Seriously, did she really think she could just throw out allegations against Justin Baldoni and walk away unscathed?
Judge to see our side of things. Girl, goodbye. Like, just goodbye. It's like the fakest thing ever. She's now fake Lively, crying Reynolds.
Little did she know, her carefully crafted sob story was full of flaws, easily exposed by digital evidence.
We're therefore amending this because we think that it shows that she was plotting before.
And the media? Oh, they lapped it up like a bunch of starved puppies. On December 21, 2020, the New York Times published a detailed report, a carefully planted sob story designed to push Lively's agenda. The timing? Absolutely not a coincidence. The media blitz was so perfectly aligned with Lively's complaint that it's almost insulting how predictable it was. She wanted the world to see her as the victim before any facts could be checked. But here's where the plot twist kicks in. Candace Owens stepped in and flipped the entire script on its head.
And says, due to public interest in this case, we have now stumbled upon this, and we're therefore amending this because we think that it shows that she was plotting before.
Owens didn't just throw shade, she obliterated Lively's credibility. The receipts? Metadata analysis pulled straight from the New York Times' own website, exposing how Lively's team was coordinating with the press before the complaint even hit the legal system. She wasn't just a crying victim, she was orchestrating the whole show.
I just wanted to say that we should be celebrating this as a major win because we were the ones who dug all of this up like psychos because we have been obsessed with this case.
The moment this came out, Lively should have packed up and disappeared. But nope, she doubled down with even more pathetic attempts to control the narrative.
Also really amazing about it is he even says we now have a concrete timeline, which we believe implicates Blake Lively.
This woman went full PR mode, pushing her victim campaign through Hollywood's elite. Suddenly, celebs were crawling out of the woodwork to defend her, organizations were making statements, and it all turned into a big, staged crocodile tear. Circus. But here's where it gets hilarious. Lively, who ran to the press first, had the audacity to demand a gag order against Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman.
Monday, they're going to court because two things. Blake is trying to gag them. I don't think that's going to go through. How can you try to say you're playing this in the press when the entire reason we got here was because you tried to play this in the press? Like, you went to the New York Times to try to take him down and to set a public narrative.
Let's just repeat that for emphasis. She set the media storm in motion and then cried about wanting privacy when it started backfiring. The judge took one look at this nonsense and threw it out. No gag order, no silencing Baldoni's side. Absolutely no easy escape. Owens was standing there with cold, hard evidence, showing that Lively's team had everything prepped for her complaint days before it was even filed.
I was the psycho who put together the timeline. So I think they've been watching the show.
So while Lively was out there acting shocked and devastated, she was literally plotting every move behind the scenes. The second this went public, her entire narrative collapsed like a poorly written Netflix reboot.
The entire reason we got here was because you tried to play this in the press. Like, you went to the New York Times to try to take him down and to set a public narrative. And now that it's backfiring, you want...
Baldoni's team didn't waste a single day before updating their lawsuit to include Owens' findings. Imagine being so spectacularly bad at faking victimhood that a talk show host can fact-check you straight into a lawsuit update. Brian Friedman took Owens' receipts and slammed them into the case record, showing the court that Blake Lively's entire narrative wasn't some organic plea for justice, it was a calculated PR stunt from the start.
He's basically saying that she does not want to sit down for a deposition with Brian Friedman. Like, I know that this girl grew up rich and privileged, but how rich we talking? You know what I'm saying? Because does she think she's just like a princess that she can just be like, I don't like your lawyer?
Blake really thought she could muzzle Baldoni's team with a gag order and waltz back to playing the tragic heroine. The judge shut that down in record time. She'd already run to the press, tried to torch a man's reputation with Coordinated. Media blitzes, and now that her lies were imploding, she expected everyone else to stay silent? Not happening. The court flat out denied her request, making it crystal clear she couldn't dish it out and then hide behind legal restrictions when the fallout hit. And if that wasn't humiliating enough, her worst fear came true. The new evidence was being taken very seriously.
Be talking, you know what I'm saying? Because does she think she's just like a princess that she can just be like, I don't like your lawyer and I don't want to sit down with him and answer questions and tell the truth. So she's trying to get out of having to sit down and be deposed by Brian Freeman. Like, sweetheart, that's not your
Thanks to Candace Owens' brutal takedown of Blake's fake victim narrative, the court had no choice but to re-examine everything. The metadata made it undeniable. Lively's complaint was carefully timed and choreographed with media outlets, proving her sob story was scripted long before she ever filed suit. The second this evidence was admitted, her entire legal strategy collapsed. What was supposed to be a slam dunk case against Baldoni suddenly looked more like a premeditated character assassination.
Posed by Brian Freeman. Like, sweetheart, that's not your option. You don't get to decide who your defense's lawyer is. He picked Brian Freeman. You don't like him because he played your game better than you.
And now, the big moment is here. This circus is finally heading to trial. That means Blake Lively will have to answer for every single detail under oath. No more massaging headlines. No more cherry-picking soft interviews. And definitely no more hiding behind Ryan Reynolds' sarcastic tweets. She'll be forced to sit in court and explain why every scrap of evidence paints her as a conniving, power-hungry liar. And let's be honest, the whole industry is watching.
Went to the New York Times. Oh, nobody could be bigger than the New York Times before you filed your lawsuit, as all of the evidence is indicating, because you wanted to set the public narrative against Justin Baldoni. Now that it's backfiring, you're like, hey, I want people gagged. This is unprofessional to go to the press. Everyone sees right through you and Ryan.
Ryan Reynolds, the human equivalent of a self-aware meme, somehow got himself tangled up in his wife's courtroom meltdown. And not in the supportive husband way. Nope. This is the guy who went from being best pals with Justin Baldoni to suddenly branding him a deranged predator overnight. Call me crazy, but isn't that just a little bit suspicious? What happened, Ryan? One minute you're calling Baldoni a wonderful collaborator, and the next you're acting like he's the supervillain in the next Deadpool movie.
Oh, we weren't trying to play the public, but we put it in every Deadpool scene, and we mocked this man extensively. And but now that the public is onto us and they see how cruel we've been, we would like things to be quiet, and we want a judge to see our side of things. Girl, goodbye.
Let's break this down, shall we? Ryan and Justin weren't just acquaintances, they were genuinely close. They showed up at fundraisers together, laughed for the cameras, shook hands, and built the perfect Hollywood bromance. And then, poof. Just a few months later, leaked private messages surfaced showing Ryan trashing Justin like he discovered he was secretly the Joker. Now, either Justin kicked Ryan's dog, or there was something a lot bigger happening behind the scenes.
Lively, Crying Reynolds, that's what they're calling them out there. Fake Lively and Crying Reynolds here, who want to pretend that they were not the bullies, that the public just saw right through them in this circumstance. But anyways, just wanted to say that we should be celebrating this as a major win, because we were the ones who dug all of this up like psychos, because we have been obsessed with this case.
And let's be honest, we all know exactly what happened. Blake whispered in Ryan's ear, told him to pick a side, and because he's apparently contractually obligated to keep her happy, probably in a pact signed in blood, he turned on Justin faster than Hollywood turns on a cancelled actor. Forget loyalty. Forget common sense. Ryan did what Ryan does best, he performed. Only this time, the audience wasn't Twitter, it was a federal courtroom, but let's talk about the timing, because it is genuinely comedy gold. Ryan's sudden moral awakening about Baldoni just happened to line up perfectly with Blake filing her complaint. What are the odds? One day, Justin is his talented, hardworking friend, and the next, he's a dangerous creep. Conveniently right when Blake needed a villain to make her fairy tale courtroom narrative believable. Absolutely. Here are clean, punchy rewrites for Intro 17 and Intro 18 to keep the tone sharp and engaging.
Like, Justin Baldoni's like my cousin now. He's my kombucha sipping cousin. You know, he had an unexpected wild dragon in me, and he's like the Jon Snow of her Targaryen story. He really never wanted this.
And let's not pretend Ryan is some innocent bystander in all this. This is the guy who built his entire brand on sarcasm and self-deprecating humor, but the moment the internet started calling him out, suddenly he couldn't handle the jokes. Funny how that works. Oh, but he had no problem mocking Justin Baldoni in Deadpool's scenes, right? He and Blake were perfectly fine slipping digs at Baldoni into their little projects and laughing it up behind the scenes. But now that the public sees right through the charade, Ryan wants everyone to forget just how deep he really is in this mess.
The Jon Snow of her Targaryen story, he really never wanted this. He's like, I never wanted this. I thought Blake Lively was my queen. I'm like, dude, she just killed a whole village of children and innocent women, okay? She's psycho. Okay?
And let's not forget, Ryan Reynolds is one of the most bankable actors in Hollywood. But here's the problem, Ryan thrives on being likable. That's literally his entire shtick. The internet adores him because he's funny, relatable, and never seems to take himself too seriously, but guess what? Getting caught in a sloppy, staged PR scandal that looks suspiciously like an orchestrated takedown of a former friend is not exactly the brand, and let's talk about the media response. Even TMZ, yes, TMZ, had to admit that online sleuths and Candace Owens' research were instrumental in exposing this train wreck. Normally, these outlets bend over backward to act like they're breaking the story, but even they had to give credit where it was due. This wasn't just some he said she said Hollywood drama anymore. It was straight up legal deception, laid bare for everyone to see.
To be part of that team. The next thing you know, she took over the editing. She started making threats that she wouldn't promote the movie, that she wanted to be in control of marketing of the movie, that she would do nothing in terms of promotion unless she was the actual editor.
Judge Lays J. Lyman had clearly hit his limit with Blake Lively's courtroom circus, so he finally stepped in and laid down the law. Both parties were ordered to stop blabbering to the press because, shocker, the case wasn't supposed to be fought on Instagram or splashed across the New York Times. Blake had been scrambling to control the narrative, but the judge made it crystal clear, this wasn't a Hollywood PR stunt. It was an actual legal battle. And for someone who built her career on looking effortlessly perfect in public, this was her absolute worst nightmare.
So congrats on your little bump.
Congrats on your little bump.
Hollywood loves a winner, but more importantly, Hollywood hates a liability. And right now, Blake Lively isn't just losing, she's radioactive.